Welcome back to Wrestling World. Today we'll be taking a look at the latest updates on Seth Rollins and Riddle's backstage fight, why Randy Orton wasn't wanted in WWE, and much more. Before we dive into these stories, make sure to subscribe with all notifications on if you're new, and drop a like below. Let's start things off with Seth Rollins and Riddle's situation because an update recently came out about this situation. So how did this story all start? Well, a few years ago, Seth Rollins was asked about wanting to work with Riddle. Seth Rollins responded to the question by complimenting Riddle and seemed interested in working with him and seeing what kind of match they could put on. But fast forward to most recently, Seth Rollins said he never wants to face Riddle and has no intention of ever working with him for the rest of his career. So he can stay away from him and go to the other brand. Which actually ended up happening. Riddle was brought to Raw, while Seth Rollins was brought to SmackDown. Everyone was a bit bugged out by the big change in Seth Rollins' response about Riddle. He went from being eager to work with him to never wanting to work with him in his career. So what happened and what went wrong? The story is probably deeper than we think, but there are some stories out there that WWE fans speculate could be related to their backstage tension. First off was a story we touched on when it first came out several months ago, and that was Riddle's wife and the comments she made about Becky Lynch's appearance and attire. In a now deleted post, Riddle's wife ranted about how WWE superstars get paid a lot of money and how their bodies still weren't in the best shape. She used Becky Lynch as an example and basically shamed Becky Lynch for wearing full bodysuits to the ring. These comments were obviously beyond out of bounds. Who are you to really judge and say what a person should or shouldn't wear to the ring? The post was quickly deleted, but like some people often forget, once you post something online, it's basically there forever. You can take it down, you can delete it, but you can't erase the screenshots and erase the minds of the people that saw that post. So some fans speculated and wondered if the comments from Riddle's wife about Seth Rollins' soon-to-be wife is why Rollins changed his mind on working with Riddle. Not only that, but other reports claim that Riddle would always critique Seth Rollins' work very harshly. So that was another rumor about the tension between the two of them. They technically took part in the same match at Survivor Series, with Riddle being on Team Raw and Seth Rollins being on Team SmackDown. However, they never interacted in the match since Seth Rollins was eliminated right away. Seth Rollins didn't even have his eyes on Riddle when he was in the ring. Rollins just kept looking at the ground when he was up on the apron, but that could have been a character-related action as well, so not really connected to the entire Riddle beef. So what's the latest update on this entire situation? Well, the brand new report claims that the two apparently talked things out backstage, and that the backstage tension and beef has been squashed. They've reportedly talked about their differences and issues, and could now be open to working with each other again. And if this report is true, then it's great news. That's what I love to hear. Sure, backstage fights and tensions makes for good drama, but you just want to see everyone getting along. The same thing with all the other backstage tensions we heard about throughout the years. We want to see everyone get along, make up, and go out there for some amazing matches. So the news of Seth Rollins and Riddle resolving their issues is definitely some great news that we needed to hear. Speaking of backstage tension, WWE legend and current AEW commentator Jim Ross recently opened up about how WWE originally felt about signing Randy Orton. Jim Ross had this to say about how WWE and Vince McMahon originally felt about Randy Orton. He, Randy Orton, was, believe it or not, he was somewhat of a controversial hire for us. Vince was the problem child that went to military school, and Randy was the problem child that went to the Marines and got discharged. Big time, Randy Orton's past was a problem for Vince McMahon. But, you know, it's one of those deals where you say, look, I said, Vince, you got a second chance, so why not this kid? He's only a third-generation performer, and both his father and his grandfather were outstanding in-ring guys. So quite the reveal there by Jim Ross. Vince McMahon didn't want Randy Orton anywhere near WWE, since Orton was already starting to get this reputation of being a problem. Everyone was claiming he was bad news and had issues. Like Jim Ross mentioned, even the Marines had enough of Randy Orton and discharged him. Vince McMahon originally wanted to stay far away from Randy Orton, But it seemed like Jim Ross was one of the individuals that really pushed for Randy Orton to be hired by WWE. Jim Ross reminded Vince McMahon that he himself was a problem child and he got a second chance. So why couldn't he give Randy Orton a second chance? Jim Ross eventually convinced Vince McMahon, and that controversial hiring turned out to be a legendary WWE superstar and performer. So that high-risk hiring definitely ended up paying off for WWE, and Randy Orton made the most out of his second chance. Ali made some huge comments on Raw Talk recently that had a lot of fans loving it because he basically said what all the fans are thinking. Retribution was a no-show on the Legends night of Raw, and Ali blames the Legends for taking up their time on Raw. He had this to say on Raw Talk: "Why don't you give us a chance? People that can contribute to this business and further this company, but no, let's push them all aside and give 3 hours to people that can barely walk." He also mentioned how no one wants to hear Hulk Hogan speak for the 7 millionth time. Charlie Caruso responded by telling Ali, "But did you hear all those cheers?" Which Ali noted was all faked, piped-in cheers. So yeah, that was an awful remark there by Charlie Caruso attempting to defend Hulk Hogan. She made it seem like those cheers were coming from real people sitting inside the arena. So don't understand why she said that unless she was joking, but she seemed to be pretty serious. But Ali's comments were overall well received by the fans. Ali took to Twitter to post this quote and said, "We don't know if we can give you a live mic again." So everyone was trying to figure out if this line was real or not, and if WWE really didn't want Ali with a live mic again. There were a lot of reports on this, and they said that they couldn't find any truth to that quote by Ali, and that it's most likely him just making things up to hype himself up and his promos up. Which definitely sounds like the truth. You get scolded by WWE and run to Twitter with that exact quote that they told you. That's usually not how it goes. So this is likely just Ali hyping himself up. But I love this move because I think it'll make even more fans pay attention to when he speaks. As far as everything going on with Retribution storyline, nothing has changed because, like we said, they weren't on Raw this week. Retribution and Ricochet were on Main Event this week, so that's definitely not a good sign for their storyline and direction. I think a majority of fans have already checked out on Retribution and Ricochet's storyline, and understandably so. There's nothing there anymore, and it's probably time for both sides to move on. We'll see what Retribution does next, but they're quickly becoming irrelevant to casual fans, so hopefully their next storyline pulls fans back in. But what are your thoughts on today's stories with Seth Rollins and Riddle, Randy Orton, and Ali? Leave your comments below. Make sure to subscribe with all notifications on and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.